What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the show. Real quick update here. I have to tack on additional info to my last video. I meant to put this detail in the last video titled Informant Shenanigans, but I just somehow completely left my mind and I entirely forgot to include it. Now, if you haven't seen Informant Shenanigans, that's the video I just did yesterday. It's available in full here on YouTube, but I implore you to go check it out on BitChute. It was originally streamed live on thelive.tv/memoryhold. So definitely, if you'd like to get into the action, chat with everyone while we're doing the shows live, DLive would be the place. So the entire episode, the main theme of this episode was these new allegations toward Jeffrey Epstein, apparently being a weapons trafficker, an arms trafficker. Apparently he was mentored by a guy named Douglas Leese. I believe that's his first name. His last name is Leese, regardless, who was allegedly a very active arms trafficker, right? And ran in intelligence circles. So that guy was apparently Jeffrey Epstein's mentor, according to this new Rolling Stone article written by Vicky Ward, released a couple days ago. Now, these are huge implications. The idea that Epstein was running in intelligence circles. Now, we knew that much. We know that Ghislaine Maxwell, who the media brands as being Jeffrey Epstein's partner, when in reality it might be a little bit more than that, because with the Maxwells, that's where you begin to enter into the realm, that territory that the mainstream media doesn't really want to touch on when it comes to Jeffrey Epstein, because that is the avenue it takes for someone to then realize just how extensive the connections between Epstein and Maxwell are to espionage and intelligence agency shenanigans, including ideas such as, informants, agent provocateurs, things like that. So in this video, once again, go check it out, Informant Shenanigans, we discussed major world events, things like the Oklahoma City bombing. We talked about the Pulse nightclub shooting. We talked about the, what was the other one? Give me one sec. I'm trying to find, the Pulse nightclub shooting, the Boston Marathon bombing. And we talked about the pattern that emerges, if you look very carefully, of informants having been present for these incidents. They are always usually embedded with the groups that actually perpetrate the crime. They're surveilling or doing recon on this terror cell, and yet it still happens. So not only the theme of their presence, but also the theme of their seeming inability to prevent major attacks from happening, despite egging them on, enabling them, and pushing them along from the very beginning. Another example we covered here was the Whitmer kidnapping, the idea that a bunch of far-right radicals were going to kidnap and maybe torture Governor Whitmer because she committed treason, according to them. But it's recently coming out that informants were planted in those groups. But not only that, the defense lawyers for that extremist group of right-wing schizos is saying that the FBI entrapped them. And now it's coming out that there wasn't just one informant, there was many more, perhaps upward of 12 to 14. And on top of that, it was the FBI agents all along, the defense is saying, that egged them along. They are the ones that said, hey, let's go stake out Governor Whitmer's house. Hey, let's do this kidnapping thing. They're the ones that push it along, which brings us back to the ultimate question of my video, Informant Shenanigans, is would these attacks have ever taken place if the FBI didn't lend these people the assistance, if they didn't build these people the bomb, if they didn't do what they did? Another example would be the school shooting compounds that were found, where they were training kids and even killed one kid to commit school shootings. The FBI were watching that shooting compound for a very long time, multiple months, maybe even upward of a year. They got direct reports from an eyewitness who owns the property, or who owns the property adjacent to this training camp. The witness straight up told the FBI, look, this missing child, he went missing recently. It was a really big thing in the news. He's at that training camp. And even though the FBI probably knew that because they were surveilling that camp, they allowed the child to be killed anyway. And it just so happens that the people involved in that school shooting training camp, involved in creating it, last name Wahaj, I forget his first name, well, he's the son of the unindicted co-conspirator of the 1993 World Trade Center bombing, of which was also subject to the idea of FBI informants that may or may not have helped it happened. So with that said, guys, just a quick update, longer intro than I expected. This was originally streamed on DLive. You could find it on BitChute. This is the additional info that is really essential, especially viewing through the lens of the January 6th insurrection. You might recall one of the real heavy-duty attack dogs for the right wing throughout, from 2016 to the 20. I don't even know if they were, created in 2016. But point is that many have heard of the Proud Boys, right? Many have heard of the Proud Boys.
These are the Proud Boys, self-described Western chauvinists, but labelled far-right white nationalists by many others. Known for street thuggery and clashes with left-wing groups, they were brought to international prominence when Donald Trump said this.
I'm Proud Boys, stand back and stand by.
Fight for Trump! Fight for Trump!
But now the question is, did they stand back and stand by? Or did they plan and carry out a prominent role in the violent storming of the Capitol on the 6th of January?
Let's go! We have stormed the Capitol!
At least 8 Proud Boys have been arrested, as well as 10 others allegedly affiliated with the group.
So how are officials not prepared? We've got to answer that question.
Channel 4 News had access to the Proud Boys leader, Enrique Tarrio, in the days around the Capitol attack.
He said it, he goes, we got to listen to the people.
And I've now met up with him in Miami to ask exactly what his role was and whether the Proud Boys orchestrated the storming of the Capitol.
But the suggestion is that this was coordinated and that you knew that they were going to assault the Capitol.
Well, I'd say no. That is definitely false.
But you're the head of the organization, and all
that's exactly why it's easy for me to say that I can't.
All these people have now been arrested who are Proud Boy members.
That's exactly why I say, because I'm the head of the organization and I know exactly what we planned and what we didn't plan. That's exactly why it's so easy for me to say that we did not coordinate to assault the Capitol.
Right. So that's the big thing, right? The Proud Boys was one of the many groups that is targeted, for better or for worse, for justified reasons or otherwise, as being alt-right Nazis, the foot soldiers for Trump. They like to say that Donald Trump in that speech, stand back and stand by, was a direct order to groups like Proud Boys to then, hang back for a little bit and then, initiate violent attacks in the streets of cities across the U.S. In protest whenever Trump says, right? And they're trying to bind the Capitol insurrection, right? That's what they call it, to conspiracy theories and to the right wing, right? The QAnon schizos, the far right wing, the people that believe in conspiracy theories. The conspiracy theories are dangerous and violent because they feed people like this, right? People died because of the insurrection. People died in the insurrection, right? One guy, they bashed a police officer's head in with a fire extinguisher. They bludgeoned him to death. Now that's the image they want to portray. So in that piece we just watched with Enrico Tarrio, the founder or leader of the Proud Boys, they are trying to once again bind the idea of the Proud Boys as an organization, bind the idea of QAnon, and because of that, adjacent, the rest of conspiracy theories, even mine, which are reasonable, you should know this by now. They're trying to bind the idea that there's a direct correlation between those and to violence, whether that be through COVID numbers, aka the QAnon conspiracy theorists, Trumpy radicals aren't getting vaccinated, and it's their fault that grandma's dead, and it's their fault that we're still in the middle of this pandemic, right? Because of these conspiracy theories, because the spread of disinformation and fake news, this is what happens. It's their fault. See, so these ideas are actually violent. Conspiracy theories are actually violent. That is the agenda and the narrative they wanted to concoct, and has been started, right, basically being written in 2016 with the advent of the creation of fake news to identify news that they deem unpleasurable, undesirable. Then you make Q 1 year later, QAnon, 2017, sometime October, November, I believe he came on board. That's when you give the title, nice, big umbrella title that consumes every conspiracy theory. So now, Pizzagate, Pedogate, Jeffrey Epstein, any pedophile-related thing is all under the umbrella of QAnon. So now the layman's, they just are under the impression that every conspiracy theorist enjoys or believes or follows QAnon. And when they think of QAnon, they think of this, and that's bad because they bludgeon cops with fire extinguishers. Now, I'd like to direct your attention to something I actually just caught a second ago while recording this. I just want to show you something because it's symbolic as to what I'm about to reveal to you. Take a look.
All these people have now been arrested who are Proud Boy members.
That's exactly why I say, because I'm the head of the organization and I know exactly what we plan.
Take a good look at what you see in the background. I don't know if this is Enrique Tarrio's house, the chairman of the Proud Boys, the radical QAnon schizo Trumpy attack dog that lashes out in violence and tries to overthrow the government. This is the background. He's got all these cool hats. One is a CIA hat, a bunch of FBI hats. Now, I don't know why they do that. I don't know why he has that collection. It's probably for merchandise he sells. I don't know. And you might not think twice about it, except for when a story like this comes out, people forget about it after a while. No big deal. Just another story about a racist Trump supporter causing violence and trying to overthrow the government. But shortly after that, you tend to get stories like this. FBI enlisted Proud Boys leader to inform on Antifa, lawyer says. The agents who met with Joseph Biggs wanted to know what he was seeing on the ground, his lawyer said, adding, they spoke often. So, what was the Proud Boys being accused of? Heinous behavior, heinous violence, possibly coordinating what the media, what the mainstream refers to as the biggest attack on our democracy since 9/11, where people were vaporized as they impacted planes, the side of buildings, skyscrapers, in a fucking Boeing. The insurrection was compared to that? Okay, well, if that's the case, why is it that people like Enrique Tarrio were actually working for the FBI when he was apparently coordinating this thing? Isn't that the allegations that this piece is putting forth here? The idea that the Proud Boys are just another terrorist group trying to overthrow the government? Isn't it interesting then that that same person, turns out, was a FBI informant? And apparently what they say? Oh yeah, they spoke often, the article says. Now, it's no coincidence then that Enrique Tarrio, you might recall, if I remember correctly, was arrested right before the protests. I believe he was driving down. Yeah, he was charged in D.C. This was a little while after, though. Is this the same guy? I don't know if it was Enrique. Hold on, Enrique Tarrio was arrested in D.C. 2 days prior. Sorry about that, guys. 2 days prior to the insurrection, arrested, and that made a big story. And it's only until after all of this, when people forget about the story, do we get the real truth. And even then, it's only some of it. FBI agents recruited a Proud Boys leader to provide them with information about Antifa networks, months before he was charged with storming the U.S. Capitol. Proud Boys thought leader and organizer Joseph Biggs agreed to provide the FBI with information about anti-fascist activists in Florida and elsewhere after an agent contacted him in late July 2020. The two agents who met with Biggs wanted to know what he was seeing on the ground. They spoke often, added Hull, who was petitioning a judge, blah, blah, blah. Now let's see if there's any mention of... Here we go. This is it. So at first, I was thinking, it was Tarrio that was the informant, but I think I reversed it. So Biggs, 37, of Ormond Beach, Florida, wouldn't be the first Proud Boys informant. So it was Biggs that was the main FBI informant and focus of this article here when it says FBI enlisted Proud Boys leader. But here's the thing. Enrique Tarrio, sorry I got that reversed initially. Enrique Tarrio was also recruited to be an informant. And that was after he was accused of fraud in 2012. So once again, he committed a crime. And it's only after he committed a crime did the FBI say, hey, let's flip you. Let's make you an informant, right? So just some interesting little tidbits here, guys. I wouldn't feel good if, because we've talked about the insurrection. We talked about informants. We did a pretty good job. I made a mistake just a moment ago where I said this article was actually speaking directly about Enrique Tarrio. That's not the case. It was actually Joseph Biggs, who's the subject of this piece and an FBI informant. But rest assured, it does not matter because Enrique Tarrio has a history of informing on people for the police. The man that ran a group that allegedly coordinated the overthrow of the U.S. government in the worst attack in our nation's history since 9/11. Let that sink in. All right, guys, so if you like this video, like, share, and subscribe. If you only saw this video, not the other one, forget this one. Watch Informant Shenanigans. It's a pretty good introductory breakdown on all the incidents where informants have been in the background for some really shady, abhorrent, just horrible incidents around the world, and I think you'll really, get some good information out of that. Full video is also up on BitChute, guys. It's BitChute and DLive. Live streams will only be on DLive from here on out. BitChute is the main HQ. Get with it. Stop supporting biblical tech demons. All right? I'll talk to you guys again soon.